Check it. The Recall Newsom campaign is entering its final stages as the September 14th voting deadline approaches. According to Ballotpedia, Orrin Heatlie began this recall campaign on June 10th, 2020. He actually started it way before then. But it was the fifth of 6 recall petitions against Newsom since 2019. Since 1911, again, reading from Ballotpedia, since 1911, there have been 55 attempts to recall a California governor. The only successful recall campaign was in 2003 when voters recalled Governor Gray Davis who then replaced him, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I had the chance to interview Mr. Orrin Heatlie and discover why this grassroots campaign has been so successful. Grassroots marketing is still a viable business model. And as a matter of fact, it takes me back to the early 2000s when I helped co-found the Rippometers hand sign at UC Irvine. And we did this all through grassroots marketing, spreading the word, educating students, faculty, the community at large. And 20 years later, it's still a very big deal today. Have a watch of this video of Mr. Orrin Heatlie as he explains why this time, this recall became so successful. Let's start with the softball question here, okay? Maybe tell us, what is a day in the life of Orrin Heatlie?
I'll give you a little bit of background into my history. Started out as a small business manager with the family business. My brother and I ran a couple of restaurants and concession stands here in Folsom, California, Sacramento area. We then ended up buying a bar and grill down in the Delta. And I left that family business to pursue a career in law enforcement. It was a calling of mine. I spent 25 years with the Yolo County Sheriff's Department, and I recently retired as a sergeant after 25 years. And after retiring, I had a couple of back procedures, and I was laid up pretty well, and kind of started paying more close attention to politics in my area and our state and what was going on around us. And I saw some things that had disturbed me. So I decided to become involved in a local or a recall effort to recall this governor. And that was ran by Erin Cruz, and she's a congressional candidate down in Southern California. I was excited about participating in the effort and thought it had a real good chance at succeeding until I got knee deep into it, a couple weeks, months into it. And I realized that it really lacked some fundamental components that it needed in order to be successful.
Tell me about those fundamental components.
Well, at some point, I realized that it didn't have what it needed to be successful. There was a lack of leadership, a lack of communication. There was no management. They really had no plan. And at that point, I made a decision to utilize the remainder of that recall effort as a live training drill to learn everything that I could learn about the process, because I'm not a politician. And, I'm not a public figure. I've never delved into this arena before. I have management experience. I have, working with large scale operations, and I have training through my career running the corporations and operations, things like that. So what I wanted to do was learn everything I could about this arena, because it was foreign to me, and address a lot of those frustrations that people had during that campaign, a lot of the stumbling blocks, and then apply those lessons learned to this campaign so we could overcome those hurdles and give it the best chance at success that we could possibly give it. So we identified, at first, let me back up. I started to formulate my own business plan under the National Incident Management System of Management. And the NIMS, National Incident Management System, is a paramilitary operation of management. It's used widely in law enforcement. It addresses a lot of key components with managing organizations or operations, as we call them, in law enforcement. So basically, you take what resources you have available now and you address the problems at hand with what you have. And then as more resources come in and as the environment changes, you adjust to it. It's a very nimble management system, and it's nothing like you see in the corporate world. Okay, this is going to be very foreign to a lot of people that are listening to this.
Okay, walk me through this here a little bit, because this is kind of interesting, right? Because I'd say I'm more in the corporate world, right? You're going to take a problem that's out there, then find the solution for it, right? It sounds like the first step, or what we would call in let's say science, in the scientific world, is say first principles. The first principles of what you were doing was not to identify the problem per se, but what are the resources available to you?
Well, the problem was already presented.
What was the problem that you identified? Because obviously it's too easy to say that, well, we need a new governor and that's the problem. I'm sure that wasn't the problem, right? So
it's in a lot of ways it is that simple, but it becomes very complicated because you have to, with the National Incident Management System, you have key components. You have logistics, field operations, public information officer. You have, there's this checklist that you have to knock through. So you identify the problems. Okay, communications. It was a huge problem. There was a lack of communication within that organization, lack of management, lack of leadership. In my world, if a project of this magnitude dies on the vine, it dies of two. There's usually two causes of death: lack of leadership or ineffective leadership, or death by committee. Okay. And I'm sure there are a lot of people that are going to listen to this that are going to nod their head at that. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So, and if something dies by committee, it's because of the failure in leadership.